Buonasera a tutti, good evening and welcome to the Italian Radio Hour. Io sono Viviana and I would like to welcome back our regular listeners and also welcome any new listeners. Also be sure to like us on Instagram and Facebook at Italian Radio Hour and subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch up on any past video interviews. Vorrei dare il benvenuto ai nostri ascoltatori da tutto il mondo, grazie per essere con noi anche oggi mentre continuiamo il nostro viaggio per l'Italia e la cultura italiana. Today we're diving into one of my favorite topics, what it really means to pack up your life, cross the ocean, and start fresh in a new country. For some, it's chasing a dream. For others, it's a leap of faith. But for everyone, it's a life-changing experience. Joining me today are two wonderful guests whose stories beautifully mirror one another in different ways. First, we have Caroline Chirichella, an American who followed her heart and her dream all the way to Italy. She has built a new life here, navigating the challenges and joys of being a foreigner in Italy, while also reinventing herself professionally. And we also have Simona Pappalardo, born and raised in Italy, who made her own journey to the United States. Like Caroline, she discovered that living abroad reshaped her career path, her sense of self, and even how she sees both Italy and America. Together, we're going to talk about fears and opportunities, what it really takes to start over in a new place, and how both of them define the Italian dream and the American dream from their own unique perspective. Think of this as a conversation among friends, honest, curious, and maybe a little surprising. So don't go anywhere, ma prima pubblicità. Parli italiano? Do you want to learn, improve, or master your Italian? Istituto Mondo Italiano can help. Located in the heart of Regent Square, Mondo Italiano offers small group classes and one-on-one private tutoring in person or online to help you learn Italian in no time. Visit us online at istitutomondoitaliano.org. Well, I'm so excited to welcome both Caroline and Simona. How are you today? Both connecting, one from the US and the other one from Italy. So this is a super international episode. Come state, ragazze?
Benissimo, sto bene, grazie anche per aver invitato me qua.
Simona.
Yes, thank you for having me. Hello, everyone.
So this is going to be, as I said, a nice, honest conversation. Okay, there is the Italian dream, and there is the American dream, and then there is something in between, right? So we're going to learn a little bit about your own individual experiences. But before we get to the serious stuff, okay, I would like to start with maybe sharing a moment in your individual personal lives to see a little bit how is it going in your new country. So I'm going to start with Caroline right now, and I am going to bring up, it looks like a birthday celebration. So tell us all about Caroline.
Oh, yes. Well, I've been living in a small town in southern Italy for going on 11 years now. And I came here as a young, wide-eyed 24-year-old, all excited and filled with dreams, not knowing what to expect. I came here not knowing the language, without a job, without my friends or family, without a community. And now, after being here 10 years, I've created my community here. And that, to me, is the best part of it. It's a very small town, a community of 5,000 people. And that, to me, is what makes me so happy to be there, the community that I have created. Everybody watches out for one another. Everybody knows each other's names. I have two children, as you can see by the pictures. That's my daughter, Lucia, and my son, Nicola. Husband in back of him, holding him, and my mom. And it's just a kind of community where everybody knows one another. Everybody's looking out for one another. Everybody knows everybody's names. Children can walk around safely here. And it's just, for me, now after being here 10 years, that is the takeaway that I've had from being here.
Wonderful. So I just wanted to mention something that touched me deeply and dearly. So you have recently announced that also your father, Bob Brody, who is a very seasoned
Yep.
PR professional, is going to join you. We're mentioning that Chirichella and Associate is a PR company specifically specializing in mompreneurs. You have extensively written in many papers like the New York Times. So Bob is joining
Yes.
you in this adventure. And
Yes.
as curious as we are as journalists, I had to look a little bit deeper into his profile. And I think it's something that really touched everyone. Is a letter from 2018 that he wrote and was published in the New York Times entitled Dream for My Unborn Granddaughter. And that's also the reason why I brought up Lucia's picture. And it's a beautiful letter. I'm just going to read with my Italian accent just the last couple of paragraphs and get the tissue box out. So here it is again, towards the end of the letter. Already I see you everywhere I look. I see you in all the infants and toddlers in the parks and playgrounds. I see you in my daughter's smile in the video showing her hearing your heartbeat for the first time. It's no exaggeration to say that just by virtue of your birth, you are giving us a peek at eternity. I'm so high on you. I even see you in the sun and the sky and the stars and the ocean. It's a big deal. You're coming along to join us. As with all newborns, you will represent both our past and our future. You will contain traces of all of us within you, connecting the generations in a continuum. Through you, something of all those we once lost will be reborn. So welcome. You're going to be the luckiest kid on the planet. You'll get to be next to us. I think this is amazing. So putting the heart and the mind behind these words, aka your father, and they say that the apple doesn't fall too far from the others, from the tree. You, your family, and your clients are extremely lucky to have you representing them. So
Thank,
anyway, so
thank
we'll
you. No, you nailed it exactly. Hearing what my father wrote for my daughter, it got me teary-eyed because it's just, and being here specifically, like you see the pictures, that was my daughter's 7th birthday last week. It's just, as you can tell by what my father wrote, we put our heart and soul into everything we do. And I think that that's evident in what you just read.
So we're gonna switch from kids to adults. So this one is going to be for Simona. I don't have any letters that I was able to dig out, but I'm sure there are some memories that you can share about maybe your first trip to Venice and you're coming back to Venice. And I like the caption says, "This is now the Venetian." So whoever has been to Las Vegas has seen the Venetian. So it's kind of, this is the real deal. So Simona, tell us a little bit about this experience.
Yeah, so this is actually a trip. It was the first trip we took as a family of three, actually, even if you don't see here my daughter, because luckily we left her with my mom and dad. And this was the first time my husband and I were able to escape parenthood. So we went back to Italy to celebrate her first birthday. Actually, that's when this picture was taken. And so we took a short trip, just the two of us, to go to Venice, which is, I mean, which city more romantic than Venice can you find, right? So it was really nice to just reconnect with my husband. My husband and I mean, in some way we represent, right, the fact of living across borders and across cultures. So before living in the United States, I actually lived for a period of time in Malaysia. And that's
Yes.
where I met my husband, who was born and raised in Kuala Lumpur. And then from Malaysia, we moved back to Italy. And then after 3 years, we got married. And then after 3 years living in Italy, we came back we came, sorry, not came back. For the first time, both of us came to the United States. And now we have been living in the States for 11 years.
Yeah.
And yes, so it was actually my husband's first trip to Venice. Finally, we made it to Venice. And I mean, it's just the beauty of Italy, right? That's why this title of the picture is "This is not the Venetian," because this is the real deal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was a beautiful moment of reconnecting as a couple. You know how it is when you have kids, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly
Okay.
you are in. There is always three of you.
So is this the flight that took you to the United States back in the day?
Yes, yes, it is. So funny story about our flight. So my husband again took a leap of faith, and I say again because he has never been to Italy and he decided to move with me to Italy without ever seeing the country before, right? And then guess this, 3 years later, I'm like, hey, Annie, why don't we go to the United States? I have this huge opportunity. Let's
Never a
pack
dull
up and
day
move.
with Simona, that's for sure.
And on the flight, so we were coming to Chicago, but we interconnected in New York. That's why it says New York. And the best moment was we board on the plane, and the flight attendant tell my husband, "Welcome home, sir." So he never set foot in the United States, and that's how the attendant greeted him. And he's like, "I found my place."
Okay.
And that's what has been for us for the past 11 years. And so, yes, great memory, that flight. I will always remember that moment.
But you were fascinated by the United States at a young age of 10 years old by looking at some pictures of stickers. Can you tell
Uh-huh.
us and maybe I'll tell you subconsciously what drew you to the place you're going to mention. You might know, maybe not, but
Okay.
let's dive in. Let's not keep the suspense.
Sure. So my mom always fill up the tank, always at the same station. And this gas station, that particular moment was giving out this stickers book, right? So of course, I'm 10 years old. Which kid
There's
doesn't love
nothing
sticker
better than
books?
stickers. I still do. I still love them. Color pencil
And it
stickers,
was a
lovely.
sticker book about the United States of America. And
Wow.
it was, you know, all a little bit of the history. I mean, it was targeting kids, so it wasn't like
Right.
a whole encyclopedia, right? But a little bit of the history of the United States, the place of the United States, and all of that. And 10-year-old me sees these four huge faces
Mhm,
carved out in the mountain, right? And of course,
mhm.
I don't even know who they are at that point. Like, I'm a 10-year-old Italian. And I'm like, Mom, is this real? This cannot be true. Who carves out faces on a face of mountain? You know what I'm saying? And my mom said, yes, that's true, right? And so since that very day in 1992, I have wanted to go and visit Mount Rushmore, what is known as Mount Rushmore. That now,
Mhm.
of course, I understand it's much more of history behind it, right? It was the land where the tribes, where it was sacred to the tribes. And so there is a complex history behind Mount Rushmore. But nevertheless, last July, my husband gifted, for my birthday, he gifted me a trip to Mount Rushmore. And I'm telling you, the sticker book didn't make it justice. It's just a magnificent
Yes.
thing to look and take in the size of it. And of course, those are the four presidents, right? Now I know who the faces, whose faces are those.
Well, I'll tell you something about whose soul is behind those faces. There's actually an Italian carver, Luigi Del Bianco from Friuli Venezia Giulia, whose work went unappreciated, undocumented, as far as being the one that gave the salt to the eyes of the presidents. We actually had the honor to host his grandson at Istituto Mondo Italiano for a performance and follow the journey that took him about 20 years, so that now there is a plaque of Mount Rushmore recognizing Luigi Del Bianco as being the main carver of the expressions, the faces on the president. So there was maybe a little bit of that Italian, subconscious connection, drawing you to appreciate this monumental Herculean enterprise.
Makes sense.
So Caroline, let's actually come back to you, because you're also a woman of many talents, a trained opera singer. You perform at the Met with leading tenor Marcello Giordani. You had your own business, La Cucina Prima Donna. What haven't you done? You writer, blogger, everything, just from a very young age, you were drawn or you wanted to share the essence of La Dolce Vita, let's say, living, appreciating the best of life. Can you tell us actually the Chirichella last name, a little bit about your background and also all the different things that you did while you were in New York?
Of course. Well, the Chirichella name, I took, that is my mother's maiden name. And
Okay.
I changed it in honor of my grandmother, because my father's not Italian. But growing up, I was very close with my late grandmother. And to me, she and my mom have been responsible so much for creating this part of my life, that at a young age, I think I was 11 when I made the decision telling my parents I wanted to go by Chirichella as an honor to my grandmother, because it was just, it was very strong for me, because I lost my grandmother when I was 10 and a half. And going back further, it is my grandfather, Nicola Chirichella, with whom I named my son after Nicola, that I'm here, because my family started out in a small town in Salerno called Sola Consalina. And it was just something that really, no offense to my father, obviously, but I was so strong about it at 10 years old. I think 11 years old, I said, I want to change my name. It means a lot to me for grandma and to create those memories. And so now, since then, since being married, I just go by Caroline Chirichella, because it's just in my heart. That's just, I can't go by any other name, because every time I hear that, I think of my grandma. And that's more important to me than anything. Regarding all my different careers, and this will have to go a little further back. So the funny thing is, when I was a little kid, I dreamed in the back of my head about going to Italy to study opera. And to me, that was so quintessential, going to Italy to study opera, where better than the place of opera, the birthplace of opera. And then at around 10 years old, I started studying music. I then continued to study music. And then my first trip to Italy, I was invited to sing in an opera festival on the island of Ischia. And that was my first trip coming here. And being in Italy, literally, we took a cab from Fiumicino and we passed the Colosseum. And that first time seeing the Colosseum was just mind-blowing, seeing it finally in person. And I spent the summer here singing. And then I went back to the United States. And then I continued singing for quite a few years. I had quite a few big opportunities. But then singing it didn't, I felt like it wasn't in line with what I wanted to do anymore, for a million reasons, of which I'm not going to get into everything. I feel like that would need its whole other conversation. So from that, I decided to go back to my other love, which was cooking. So I started a catering business in New York, and I did pop-up dinners, and I love doing that, because what Italian doesn't like cooking, obviously. And so I started doing that. I came here. How I got here is, again, a long story that I will do my best to keep brief. But essentially, I live in a small town called Guardia San Framondi. It's an hour outside of Naples, super small town. And originally, through all my plans of moving here, I had originally wanted to move to Florence because I went to culinary school there. I figured, oh, Florence is a good place to settle because everybody speaks English and, you know. But my mom saw this town, Guardia San Framondi, on an episode of House Hunters International one day. And she said to me, you know, Caroline, that place looks really nice. And it's not too far from Sala Consalina. And why don't we go check it out? I said, oh, okay, fine, let's check it out. And when we came here the first time, it felt like coming home. And so I said, you know what? I don't want to settle in Florence. I want to settle someplace that really feels like being in Italy, because I love Florence, obviously, but you hear English spoken so often. There's so many tourists. There's all the students. In my town, it's an Italian town, obviously. But so I settled here. And then I started doing public relations. I had been doing my pop-up dinners here in Italy, doing some catering here. And then when I was pregnant with my first daughter, I had to stop after a few months because of, pregnant, morning sickness and everything. And I got back to writing. And as you mentioned, my father is a PR executive. He has all this experience. And one day he and I had a conversation with a friend of mine who was looking for PR. And one thing led to another. And I said, you know what? I think I should start doing PR, because having been an opera singer and having had a catering business, I really know what people are striving for to be seen when they want attention. They want to be seen for their hard work. And so for the past 5 years now, I've been doing PR. But the best thing, and I've said this before because people have said, oh, you've had so many different careers. I feel like every career change I've had has helped shape the next, because I could never consider all the studying I did with my music a waste of time. It was a beautiful part of my life, one that I'm very grateful to have had. And having that push and that strive in that field, I now get to work towards when I work with my clients. So it's kind of like the pages have turned, because these are people that have created businesses. They want to be seen for their work. They want people to know what they do and who they are. And I know what that's like, because I was on that side. I wanted people to know who I was when I was singing. I wanted people to applaud when I sang. I wanted, people to know me. And so now I get to apply that for my clients. So it's been a whole jumble of all different things, but.
Yeah, and you're bringing that level of authenticity of I've been there. I know what it feels and it means. Thank you for sharing. Now, Simona, you graduated from the Politecnico di Milano, so you've been surrounded by semiconductors, electronics, and manufacturing industries for quite some time, for about 20 years, until you felt a tug of war inside you where you were torn between representing yourself, representing your teams, maybe not even having the freedom to go full throttle with what you could bring to the table, and wanted to bring out the potential of, and not only potential, but also cultural awareness, having lived in other countries and continents, having also a husband from a different country where it's a continuous share. So you're living what you're working on and assisting people with. And there is one word that I really would like you to define for our audience. Can you define for me the word extraordinary? Because that's what you want to bring out of people.
Yes. So first of all, let me say that what Caroline has talked about resonates deeply also with me. So yes, I have wanted to be an engineer for the longest part of my life. I started wanting to be an engineer back when I was 5. And I achieved that dream. I graduated from Polytechnico, like you said, and I've been in the world of engineering since I graduated for 20 years. And then last year, I decided that I needed something completely different. Exactly like Caroline said, it's not that I regret spending that long time making myself an engineer. No, 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 no. This is what I always say. Going back, I will redo exactly the same thing. But moving forward, I needed to do something really, really different. And so during the course of my corporate career, I have come into contact with this wonderful world of coaching and what it really means, in some way guiding people, like you were talking about unleashing their potential. And this has given me the opportunity to reconnect with who I am at the core, which is a person that has lived across cultures all of her life, from my study holidays when I was 10, going to Ireland or Scotland to learn English, to marrying a person of a different background where honestly, like the first time we were married, we were like, okay, are we gonna have rice or pasta tonight for dinner? Because I always want pasta and he always wanted rice, and like it sounds stupid maybe or like small, right? But when you marry a person from a different culture, you have also to figure out those kind of trivial things, right? And so now I get to work with clients that are global leaders and expat. And you said, what would I say about being extraordinary is bringing your full self at the table. Each and every one of us has that seed of extraordinaire in each and every, in our art. You know what I'm saying? But because we live in a society that tells us this is what is right and this is what is wrong, now that spark, that miracle that we have inside becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. And thanks to the fact that I've lived in so many different cultures, I realize how much of that is put on top of us. Because now what's perfectly normal in Italy, it's not perfectly normal in Malaysia or in the United States, right? And so I've started to realize that this is all something that is put on us. It's not inside us. And if we can start removing a little bit all that self-doubt, that I am not enough, little voice that talks to us, that's what extraordinary means to me, right? So each and every one of us can be extraordinary in their own way, if it makes sense.
And actually, the word that you extraordinary, as you break it down with something that is out of the ordinary, something on top. And we were talking with Caroline just before starting the interview about being probably the only American mom in her town. So her daughter is bilingual, her children are bilingual, and how when you're 6 years old to 7 years old, you want to be like everyone else and that's, wanted to conform. And I say, no, that's exactly the opposite. She is bilingual. She maybe have a Halloween party, share the culture where that element, maybe right now she might feel that she wants to, I don't want to say hide or whatever. It's not that. Is actually going to be the reason why people are going to seek her even more, because she has a delightful personality from the pictures I have seen, because she brings so much more. But our tendency might be to kind of put it down inside because we want to please the others. Let's start pleasing ourselves first. Let's like a champagne bottle, just let's uncork that bottle and let us sparkle. So we're going to go into a quick break and then we're going to dive into the actual move. Okay? Don't go anywhere.
Do you love Italian food? Want to learn the secrets of homemade pasta, sauces, and traditional recipes, just like Nana used to make? At Mondo Italiano, our authentic Italian cooking classes bring the taste of Italy right to Pittsburgh. From fresh pasta to regional specialties, every class is a delicious journey through Italy's culinary traditions. Spots fill quickly. So reserve your seat today. Call us at 412-478-2681 or find us online. Mondo Italiano, where Italy comes alive one dish at a time.
Un caffè, per favore. For more than 35 years, Pittsburgh has started its mornings with La Prima Espresso. From freshly roasted beans from around the world to the perfect espresso or cappuccino, every cup is crafted with care. Stop by and enjoy the warmth of our baristas and familiar faces, or bring the taste of Italy home. Order online today at laprima.com. La Prima Espresso, Pittsburgh's coffee. Back with two wonderful guests, Caroline Chirichella and Simona Pappalardo. We're talking about their experience of one moving to the US and the other one moving to Italy. So kind of almost like the movie Sliding Doors. So I'm sure there's been a point, the excitement, maybe some of the fears or whatever of it's like, okay, we're moving. And then finally you get to the place, it's like, oh my God, I actually moved. Okay. And so I wanted to kind of get into your state of mind before departure, maybe 6 months after landing and maybe a year after landing to see how those emotions might have peaked, go down until you kind of found your inner peace. Caroline, you didn't specifically mention why you moved to Italy. Right. So let's go for that. You kept us, guessing. So let's go for that. And then again, you're packing your stuff. You're going. You're there.
Well, I was very unusual. I grew up in New York City, and growing up in New York City is like having the world as your playground. And I loved it. I had an amazing childhood, taking advantage of the city from every angle, every opportunity that you could. But when I was in my early 20s and I had my catering business and it was going really well, and I was working late and doing big parties, working for private clients, I would be coming home late and I'd be exhausted. And one day I was on the train late at night, exhausted, and I was observing other people around me who were just sitting there like zombies, for want of a better word. And I thought, I don't want this to be me, because right now I'm not having any time for much of a social life. I'm not having much time for my family. I don't know what the future holds, but I don't want to just make my life about work, as has become, I'm sorry to say, very American, where we want to just keep working and making money, but we're not living our lives. Mm-hmm. And in the back of my mind, I had always wanted to come to Italy. And I had begun to feel tired of essentially the rat races in New York, how busy it was, how crowded it was. I mean, I grew up in a high rise, excuse me, in New York City, and I didn't ever know my neighbors. You get on an elevator and nobody would say hello to one another. I would go to the same businesses for years, and to them, you were just another customer. It's not like it means anything for you. And I didn't like living that way anymore. And so again, when I was 24, but a few years before that, I started thinking, I wonder what it would be like to move to Italy. I wonder if I can actually make that happen. And then I am a dual citizen also. So I have, that was an essential part of it, of course. Here, 6 months in, I am going to be honest. I feel like, because I don't want to give anybody an unrealistic point of view of what it's like to move to Italy. Within 6 months of being here, I really felt home. I felt I found a place where I belonged, where I could walk around safely, where you could be, again, I mentioned this before, really become a part of a community, which was something I never had growing up in New York City. In New York City, I didn't know when the doorbell would ring in New York City, you'd feel frightened if it was like, because you didn't know who it was coming. Whereas here, if the doorbell rings, it's probably my neighbor asking if I want to come over for a cafe, or if it's the next door neighbor bringing me some fruit from their orto. And I wanted that sense of community that I never got. And so within 6 months of being here, I started settling into my routine. I started writing. I had met, which would now become my now husband. And I felt a new kind of peace that I hadn't found ever in New York. And a lot of that came with creating a life that was on my own terms to make me happy. That wasn't just based on, okay, I have this catering business. I have all this. I mean, obviously a catering business, it's a lot of work, a lot of effort. So much time goes into it that you afterwards don't feel like you have any time for yourself. And so when I was here within 6 months, I just kind of gave myself those 6 months to ease in to living here without any expectations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then within a year of being here, my husband and I got engaged, and I started writing again, and that led to one another and going back to public relations. But it was a fairly easy transition. I had moments because when I moved here, I did not speak the language. I didn't speak it. I knew little bits and pieces, obviously studying opera. But what I did make a point to do was I put myself in uncomfortable positions to force myself to learn the language. So when a group of people would say, hey, you want to go out for dinner, in Italian, of course, in my head, I think, oh my God, after 3 hours, how am I going to do with being surrounded by 20 people speaking Italian? I can't handle it. I'll just be a deer.
Because the conversation topics will just be all
exactly. But that I credit to having given me the force to learn the language, because after 6 months, I was really picking it up. And within a year, I was fluent, not grammatically perfect. I want to make that very clear, but be putting myself in those positions, those tough moments where everybody, you know how Italians are, everybody's speaking over one another, loud, over food, of course.
No, never.
No. But those were the nights that then helped me make that leap towards learning the language.
And also, can you give me the actual moving year for you?
I moved in 2024.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. My God. 2014. My God.
2014.
Excuse my head. 2014.
So in a blog of 2016 leading 2017, you mentioned that you have found friends that you can sit down and pour your heart out to.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference between maybe a successful experience moving abroad, recreating that healthy social network that is not just of one kind. We need as human beings to be able to count, to make those friendships. And it's always, the older people get, the more challenging that becomes. So for you, having found what you can call true friends, I think is one of the many prizes with the Z, prizes that you have got or you're getting out of this experience. Simona, I would like to learn a little bit about your journey, because you came with excitement, and I don't know if you just decided, it's like, oh, let's move to the United States, or maybe you got transferred by your work. Maybe if you can share what might have been your biggest challenges initially, whether they were socially, culturally, professionally, language. Tell us a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, so I was working for Whirlpool Corporation at the time, the appliance company, very big American company, and their European headquarters were in Milan. So I was working for them from Italy. And then after a few years working with them, I had an opportunity to, let's say, do some good business, right? And let's say my name was floated among the executive and all of that as a person capable of doing certain things and all of that. And that was my opportunity, honestly, to get a global role in the global headquarters that are in Michigan, right? And so that's how I came. So I want to recognize that on one side, I think I had it easy in the sense that from the visa standpoint and getting a green card and all of that, with a company of that size having my back, let me say, it was a fairly smooth journey. Of course, there is a waiting time and all of that, but it was a fairly smooth journey. But I do remember, right, that at the beginning, vice versa, guess what? I was a very young engineer, very much into wanting to do good work, right? And so what attracted me to the United States was the famous thing about meritocracy that I feel instead in Italy, you have to pay your dues, you have to have seniority before being promoted and all that. So vice versa, it wasn't like what Caroline said. I put a lot of pressure on myself. And guess what? What made me successful at home didn't necessarily make me successful also here in the United States, like interacting with colleagues and understanding relationship at work. And I mean, I remember getting inside a room for a meeting. I don't know anyone, and nobody takes the time to introduce themselves because they are focused on the task, right? That's how American working culture is. And so I'm like, okay, what I mean, like how do I break, like in Italy you build the relationship first and then you get to the task, right? And so here I'm like, okay, how is this gonna be? However, I think I was a pretty good engineer, and so after 6 months, to be precise, asking your question, I was like, oh my gosh, I was still on my visa. Of course, I was waiting for my green card to be given to me, but I was still like depending on the company for a visa. I'm like, oh my gosh, what if they lay me off? Because I was doing good, but on me, it was like, oh my gosh, right? What if I am not able to break through some colleagues with which I was working with and all that? So in 6 months, I'm doing great, let me say. But in 1 year, thanks to the work that I was doing, I was able to bring back some good work again. And so I remember they gave me my first managerial role. And that was the opportunity to now create a culture in my team that fitted them, of course, but also fitted me. And so my team started becoming a very inclusive environment where we were going out for a beer on a Friday afternoon and all that. And that's how I started building connection. So interesting enough, I have found that also Americans crave connection, but maybe they are less prone to take that first step. I assume. And so when I took the first step, I was like a magnet. You know what I'm saying? And I created a circle. I started with my team, and then my team started to have a name that, oh, if you work for Simona, it's a very good culture, and more people wanted to come and work with me or connect with me. And I mean, yeah, we had a great time. And that's when I felt, okay, I get a real chance here. I'm doing good. My career was going good, but also my connections and my involvement with the community, let's say, started really take off.
Yes. And you also became a US citizen with your husband, right? So you have also obtained that dual
Yes.
passport. And so now let's talk about traditions a little bit. I'm going to show a picture of Simona that you might think maybe belonged to Caroline, but let's see what is Simona making in her kitchen. Okay. That you might say, oh, that belongs an American tradition, right? To Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, one of my favorite holidays.
So we're gonna talk about a little bit about sharing your background, but also with others, especially in your host country. to preserve parts of your identity, but also as the newcomer, or not really newcomer after so many years, but wanted to embrace what the country honors as well. So, Simona, do you have a great recipe for turkey? I have to admit, I've been now in the US for 31 years, and I have cooked turkey once, and I will never do it again. So if you want to invite everyone has my email address. I will come because I'll share my quick turkey experience. But we're talking about so many moons ago, and I was thinking, yeah, my best friend Michelle and I were the phase in our life where we were running half marathons, right? We were always hanging out together. So she was single, I was single, and I say, why? And my company, I was working for an engineering company, always donated a huge turkey to all the employees. And because I was traveling internationally, you had also the option to donate it. But that one year, I don't remember why I didn't act upon the donation option. So I come back from Norway. I'm in my office and they call, Mr. Saltier, your turkey is waiting for you in the warehouse. And I go down and really, turkey's in the refrigerator. I just kind of walk by. Okay. They give me, and I call it this bird that was like humongous. I was like, what is this? I don't even have space in my refrigerator for something this big. I was stuck with the turkey, and you can't really, after that, donate it because of all the food regulations. Because I thought I'm just going to bring it to the closed pantry or something. No, you can't get rid of a turkey once it's given to you. So I call up my friend Michelle. I said, Michelle, I have this big thing in my fridge. I think I'm going to try to cook it. But I never really even looked into the recipe. I'm not a big fan of the cranberry sauce. I have to, I'll go for the pumpkin pie anytime. So anyway, we make a plan. So I'm taking this big bird in there and I start basting it with, olive oil and butter and rosemary and all those Tuscan spices that I had in my kitchen cabinet. And start cooking it. And my friend comes and it's like, it's barely cooked. So she said, let's go shopping, leave that thing cooking, which is probably not something that I would recommend anyone doing, to leave something cooking in the oven when you're not at home. But anyway, I don't know, 8 hours later, the turkey is ready. So I'm like so proud, right? None of that stuffing thing, nothing, right? So I'm cutting this humongous turkey and my friend starts eating it. It's like, it is very good, but not traditional. Because obviously, there is memory associated with traditions. You kind of expecting the stuffing, and here I was Tuscan style turkey. So at this point, I said, that was my first attempt and the last one. Thank you very much. So you look like Simona, you know what you're doing there. You have a great recipe for turkey.
I actually do. I will tell you this. It also took me years to decide to put myself in cooking a turkey because you hear all of these horror stories, right? There is all of these shows where there is always a family, right? Where they come to your house and the turkey is raw or is not moist enough and all that. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the most difficult thing ever to cook. And so it took me years before deciding that, hey, I want to try to cook it. But yes, at this point, we tend to celebrate Thanksgiving at our home. Maybe we invite our foreigner friends over, right? People that have not had that experience of an American Thanksgiving, let's say, because that's the meaning of it, right? Like you want to open your houses, your homes to people that maybe don't have that opportunity and give thanks. So yes, my turkey is moist. I'm happy to report that I have a great recipe. So Viviana, I'll share it with you later.
So we'll have in the show notes your Thanksgiving recipe and Caroline's cioccolata calda recipe. So,
Oh yes, I love hot chocolate.
Yeah. So sorry, Simona, continue.
No, yeah. So and so that's I think we love Thanksgiving because of course it's a very American holiday. So as you said, there is a piece of celebrating tradition is related to memories and all that. Like, for example, for Christmas, I will always make lasagna, right? Because it reminds me of childhood and it's my heritage and I want to pass it down to my daughter and all that. Thanksgiving is a great opportunity for us because we don't have anything. It's not I substitute it, right? It's
Right.
something I add on. And that's what I mean when I talk to my clients and all of that about cultural adaptation. It's really about seeing the opportunities now of merging and mixing two worlds, right? So Christmas is still very Italian in my house, but Thanksgiving is 100% American. And I love the cranberry sauce. I love the stuffing, right? And I go all in when I cook that. But at the same time, I'll share this. We do Christmas stockings for Befana, right?
Yes,
Which
yes,
is
yes.
the Italian, I mean, that's the old woman that puts the chocolate and the sweets in the stocking on the 6th of January. And that's what I want to preserve for my daughter. Or Carnival is another big one, right? Of course, we celebrate Halloween. She's already excited and it's only September, right? But she's gonna have, of course, an Halloween costume, but then we also celebrate Carnival and maybe we draw masks, right? Or anyway, we do some craft that then she can wear and maybe bring to daycare at times to give to other kids, right? Is something nice to share. So yes, I have a great recipe. I'll share it with you, Viviana.
So, Caroline, on the same topic, you do make a point, and just want to show a familiar Befana, but again, you got me
Oh,
there.
I know the Befana.
Oh,
We celebrate the Befana.
my sweet spot right there. So yes, we do an amazing event here at Istituto Monte Italiano, and that Befana might look a little familiar.
Familiar.
And after this public embarrassment announcement, let's go back to you, Caroline, who wanted to, you make a point to have your Thanksgiving celebration, again, to introduce your new friends to recipes and traditions that mean so much to you. So tell us, when maybe it's always the same friends, or maybe every year you make a point to invite someone else and you say, do you want to come for Thanksgiving? And what's the reaction?
Every year we switch it up. Because I make it a point. Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays. Growing up, I have such wonderful memories. I went to the Macy's parade so often, watched it on TV, helping my mom in the kitchen. So these are memories that I have to recreate for my daughter, no matter, even though we're in Italy, because again, my husband is Italian born, but since I got here, we celebrate Thanksgiving. I'm in the kitchen for days preparing everything. And even my husband makes fun of me. I kid you not, a few days ago, I said to him, we have to start preparing our holiday menus because I need the Thanksgiving menu set. I need the Christmas Eve for the Vigilia. I need Christmas set, the Befana. I'm that person that I really get so into this stuff. But specifically when it comes to creating that for my daughter, Thanksgiving is a big one because, again, growing up, we had that in the family. And so in the past few years, I've made a point to invite different friends. Some friends come the same year because I want to share these traditions with some people because they're not as familiar with it. And so even a few years back when I first made sweet potato casserole, which is with the marshmallows on top, my husband looked at it and he said, what is this? Because he's Italian. And he's like, you don't put marshmallows on food that we're going to be eating with turkey. What is? And I said, this is my American tradition of how we do Thanksgiving. And I want a part with my children. I want them to see that. I want them to get excited about that. So even like this year, I have it set that we want to watch the parade on the live stream. My kids will help me in the kitchen. We'll have our friends over. And once that smell of stuffing is in the house for me, that immediately brings me back to my childhood, having these memories. And it's funny, Simona, when you mentioned Halloween, where we live, because it is such a small town, Halloween is non-existent. And I actually said to my daughter, I want to throw a Halloween party this year for my daughter and some of her friends, because they always are like, oh, Halloween is so cool. We can dress up. but there's nothing for the kids to do here. Trick-or-treating is not a thing. Having a Halloween party is not a thing. Dressing up. So I said, I want to do that because I want to create that excitement for my daughter and some of her classmates to have that different cultural experience of a holiday that they're not familiar with.
Wonderful. So, we have touched upon, I mean, it's a very lighthearted conversation, but the cultural adaptation, the learning the language, the sharing who you are with others so that we can bridge, again, those, and build that cultural awareness. Not to dampen this beautiful conversation, did you have any fears, any what ifs at some point, and how did you overcome? I came here to Pittsburgh. It took me 2 years before I could finally understand everyone. Going to the movies with my friends and this being able to discuss it. The temperatures were frigid. It was the year of the blizzard. I was using my stiletto heels like ice picks. And observing the ladies in the underground wearing power suits and then sneakers. It's like, oh my God, a little bit of sense of fashion here. Where am I? No, kidding. But and I was an expat 2 more times. One successful experience, and another one that probably I didn't embrace as much as I did in the other two. And I did a lot of self-reflection why that didn't work out as the other two experiences. So I was wondering if, again, you had any. I don't want to say doubt because, like, personally, I'm not a person of regrets. Okay. And so I pondered the situation. I follow my gut feeling. I like to hear other people's opinion, but I like to make my own decisions so that I cannot blame anyone else. And I don't think I have ever blamed myself now but there is always something to learn. Maybe the outcome is not what you thought it was going to be, but it's something that has taught you something. So it's a win-win situation no matter what. So I was wondering if you had any experiences and then how you overcame that little bit of self-doubt or a little bit of fear and picked up from there. Simona, do you want to go next?
Well, I don't know that I have exactly a moment, but in general, so first of all, we are very happy here. And specifically, we are happy because of this sense of freedom that I think is very difficult to put in words. It's not, when Italians think about America and the sense of freedom of America, maybe they imagine the ability of, I don't know, speak up and have a voice in the government, things like that. But there is more to that. And it's very difficult for me to explain, but it's really about living life in the way you want it without necessarily being judged. There are so many more opportunities over here or becoming really who you are without judgment. That's how I feel. So that is very important to me. That's very important to us. And we are very, very happy here. Even the fact of changing career, for example, it's a very American thing, I think. In Italy, it's very difficult from an engineer becoming a coach. People are like, what? Right? You would never do that. Instead, here in the US, people have second career, third career, fourth career, how many careers you want to have, you can have it, right? This is just an example of what I mean. So there have been definitely moments though, right, where, and I think this is also something I've learned. It's part of living across borders. You always long a little bit. When I am in the United States, there is always something that I miss of Italy. And when I'm in Italy, there is always something that I miss about the United States, right? And so I think this is what all of us have signed up for a little bit. And I've come to embrace it, right? Because what I always tell my husband is that there is no paradise on earth. And what I mean by that is that there is not the perfect place, but you need to find the place that makes you happy. And I like to think that because of that, now when I go back to Italy, I can enjoy Italy fully for all the pros and maybe forget a little bit about the cons of it, right? And as I come back here, well, I always can go back for a while if there are certain things that I love more about Italy, right? So, that to me is the turning point when I finally understood that, yeah, it will never be perfect. You cannot have always the best of both worlds, but you kind of can by sometimes embracing what you have on one side or the other of the world, if it makes any
Wonderful.
sense.
Caroline?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much with Simona. She touched on something that I feel like I'm very much a person. I don't have regrets. If I want to do something, not knowing what the outcome will be, that's a risk. But I feel if something is important enough to you, you're going to try, and it's worth taking the risk. Looking back 10 years, I had no idea what I was getting into, how it would work out. Would I want to stay here? Would I want to go back to the United States? I had no idea. But I'm not somebody that lets that kind of those what ifs, those rhetorical questions get in my way. There have been moments that have been maybe less than ideal, but you touched on it, Simona. I've said so often recently, actually, there is no perfect place on earth. The perfect place on earth does not exist. There's some good about being here, there's some bad about being here, but that's all over the world. There's
That's
no
life.
place. That's
Mhm.
life. And something that I'm very big on is your definition of happiness might look different from somebody else's. So the life that I have created here, that I am so happy with, is essentially a simple life because living in Italy, being in a community where everybody knows one another, being in a place, I mean, I have the views of the mountains. I have parks nearby to take my daughter to. We travel on the weekends that, if I want to take my daughter to see the Colosseum, it's a 2-hour car ride. Or if we want to go up to Florence, or if we want to go to Naples and go to all the museums. And we have the luxury of doing that because again, in Italy, the cost of living, I work well, but I also don't have to work to kill myself to work, a full 8-hour day, 5 days a week to be able to have a lovely life, essentially. So that is a life that I've been able to make for myself and my family now, that I have no regrets. I wouldn't change any of the steps along the way because every step that I took led me to where I am right now.
Mhm. Exactly, because otherwise, also, how would you wake up with cuddles and snuggles with your children, your husband, and your 3 rescue dogs?
Yes. We actually, 2 of the rescue dogs are no longer with us, unfortunately. But one of them, yes, Dahlia. She's my children. That's with that dog. They love her. It's so sweet.
Yeah.
My son sees the dog. He's 2. But so he wants to ride her like a horse, which we do not allow. But yes, we've adopted multiple dogs at the shelters here also, which is just all part of the life we have here,
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you one last question. So what's the most American thing you have kept doing in Italy, Caroline, in addition to Thanksgiving? Okay. And the most Italian thing that you have kept doing in the US, Simona, except for the Christmas celebration, or maybe an idiomatic expression or a word in the other language that you cannot do without. So who wants to take these first?
I have to think a second. I mean,
Our
I
students
think
love to go ahead. Sorry.
you're gonna laugh, but I think sometimes the most American thing that I won't let go of are some of my food habits that my husband makes fun of me for. One of which being, I like to, please don't attack me on this. I like to eat my pasta on the same plate as my salad. And I
Okay.
sometimes eat it together. And in fact, a few weeks ago, my husband said, what are you doing? Why are you eating? I said, it's maybe more an Italian American thing, but I like the way it tastes. Please don't judge me for this.
Okay.
And that includes
Multiple
sometimes
courses on the dish, on the same dish.
it's just sometimes even like I'll also sometimes make big American breakfasts because my son will eat them. So I'll make bacon and eggs and toast and hash browns. And I know sometimes to the outside eye, from the Italian point of view, it's like, oh, you just have a cornetto and a cappuccino. So oddly enough, I feel like some of the things that I still am just American revolve around food.
Okay, wonderful. For you, Simona.
Well, I think two answers. The first one, like things that I keep on doing is definitely around food. Vice versa, I cannot have a meal that is made only of one plate. Then I'm still hungry. It doesn't matter how much I've eaten. I'm still hungry because I need that second dish, like to say now my meal is complete. So no, I have not learned to put everything on one plate. That's definitely something. But I also wanted to share with you about the word that I cannot let go. And I mean, my husband once asked me, what does that mean? Is bo. Like this is
Oh,
a very
yeah.
Italian, like
Bo.
bo.
Don't know.
When you don't know how
With a
to
shoulder
put it in,
shrug.
like bo. He's like, what does that mean? And I'm like, what does that mean? I don't know what it means. So it just means I don't know, right? But yes, definitely sometimes I answer to him bo, and he's like, honey, just give me the answer, right? Like it's yes or no. It's this direct versus being very indirect that we tend to be as Italian. And maybe you have a bow in between, and then you start talking about things, right? And give context, and then you give the answer. It's like, yes, but I just asked yes or no. You know? And it takes me half an hour to get there. So that's maybe what I've kept also as an Italian.
Yeah. So the obviously moving overseas has allowed you to, has created probably challenges and growth professionally and as a person. You, Simona, have become a book author, right? Coming out this Christmas. Do you want to just give us a quick, in a nutshell,
I
the
love
book
to.
is all about?
So my book, my first book, it's called Authentically Yours, The Global Woman's Guide to Confident Cross-Cultural Leadership. And it's an hybrid between a self-book and a memoir. So every chapter is basically a story of my life, coming from my life. Some of the stories I've touched upon today, but there is many, many more. And at the end, I try to distill, if you want, a lesson. And then I ask the reader to take that at heart. And from that lesson, I ask some self-coaching question to help the reader also, in a way, put it into practice, right? Those lessons that I've learned along the way about what it means to live authentically you, right? So that's what the book is about. It's going to come out actually December 1st. That's the due date. I just finished the manuscript. I hit send Friday just before midnight. And now, of course, there is a little bit of time of, editing and making sure the book is properly formatted. But I would love for the audience to share more, and the book is my way to do it.
Wonderful. I will put some links into the show notes. And Caroline, what's in it for you? This beautiful collaboration with your father is going to take you guys to bridge supporting the US and Italy a little more deeply.
Yeah, well, now because I'm working with my father full time with Chirichella Associates, I feel it's the best of both worlds because we each bring our own expertise to the game. Because again, my father has 30 years experience in executive roles, global companies, international, and obviously I have a different voice, a different style. So we combine that with our clients. And something exciting is that I work obviously with a focus on female-run businesses because that's just in my heart what I love to do. But recently I've started working more with Italian businesses that are looking to enhance their reputation in the American market. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of, once again, combining my resources because I speak Italian, but I know the American market of trying to help Italian businesses that want to be seen overseas.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. So Caroline and Simona, thank you so much for sharing your stories. What I love about conversations like this is how they remind us that no matter where we're from, the process of moving, adapting, and growing is both universal on one end, but very deeply personal. And to our listeners around the world, I hope that today's episode gave you insight, maybe some inspiration, and a reminder that chasing a dream, whether it is the Italian or American, always begins with courage. But unfortunately, our time together is up for today. Il Big Ben ha detto stop. And it's time for us to say arrivederci alla prossima. We want to thank you for tuning in into the program. If you have any questions or comments, or if you have any topics you would like us to address, please contact us at the Italian Radio Hour at gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And remember, if you or any of your family and friends have missed a prior episode or would like to listen to this episode again, subscribe to the Italian Radio Hour on YouTube or where you catch your favorite podcasts. And also don't forget to share this podcast because sharing is caring. So I would like to thank my two wonderful guests from across the world. So Caroline Chirichella and Simona Pappalardo. I would like to thank our sponsors, Istituto Mondo Italiano and La Prima Espresso. Until next time, alla prossima. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Ciao, grazie mille. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.